Hello, and welcome to the Landing in Japan podcast, where we talk to the people in the know about living, working, and traveling in Japan. Whether you're a tourist planning your first trip to the country or a business professional looking at starting an enterprise in Japan, thank you so much for tuning in.
Join us as we explore the many regions of this fascinating country and take a deep dive into its people and culture.
Your hosts are me, Sam Barker, and my wonderful co-host, Gerard O'Sullivan.
Great to be here, Sam, on this beautiful day in Himeji, Japan. And without further ado, let's introduce our guest today. We have Alex Litz of Expedition Japan.
Welcome to the show, Alex.
Thanks. It's great to be here, and I really appreciate you guys inviting me on.
No problem at all. Alex, first off, could you just introduce yourself to the audience, please?
Yeah, so my name is Alexander Litz. Most people call me Alex. I was born in the United States, and then I moved to Japan when I was 15. Moved out here to Yamagata Prefecture, Tsuruoka City, which is the coastal side. I live in Yamagata today, except for I live in Yamagata City now, which is we call inland side of Yamagata, and they're actually pretty different. But yeah, I went to high school here. I went to South Korea for a little bit, came back to Japan for university, finished university in Taiwan, and then came back, and now I work in travel, and I operate the director of inbound at Expedition Japan. So I'm up here in the north. It's beautiful, lots of nature, good food, and it's a great time.
Could you just talk a little bit more about how you actually came to Japan? Obviously, I can't help but notice that you came to Japan quite a lot earlier than a lot of other people might come.
Yes. So I think a lot of foreigners will end up coming here maybe after university, either as like an ALT or an English teacher, or
Yeah,
just
exactly.
because, again, they've always wanted to do some sort of career aspect here. For me, it was a little different, where my parents definitely really recognized the impact and the value of an international education. So when I was 15, I was given the opportunity, and it's something I'm very, very grateful for today, where I came, we had a family friend that was here, and I went to just regular Japanese high school with regular Japanese students. I wasn't really even properly an exchange student, so I had to do all the same work, all the same homework, all the same tests. The only difference is that I did not speak a lot of Japanese. So I had to actually teach myself Japanese by when, for example, like the teacher be speaking, usually they'll write what they're saying on the whiteboard. And so for me to be able to participate in class, be able to understand the material, I would have to copy down exactly what they're writing and then go home and manually look it up word by word. And that's actually eventually how I learned Japanese. And yeah, I was here for in high school up until my senior year. And then I went and I finished in South Korea through a government scholarship. But,
awesome. And
yeah.
and you eventually found your way into tourism specifically as the industry you work in.
Yes. So my university scholarships and kind of everything leading up to that pointed me in the direction of diplomacy. That's what I was sworn I was going to do. I was studying Sino-Japanese affairs. I was working actually in an embassy as local staff for a little bit. But what I realized from that, again, it was all great experiences. But what I did realize was that when I was working at diplomacy, I was doing a lot of advocacy and awareness, but not so much groundwork. Because what I wanted and what appealed to me about diplomacy was that I wanted to help people.
Sure.
And I do think, obviously, that there's a place and a time for diplomacy, and I think that it does a lot. It was a lot of talking, and a lot of the time it was kind of helping the people on top kind of dribble down. For example, I was doing one time one of my large responsibilities was I was doing translation for, it was this big Japanese company that wanted to open a doll head factory in the country of the embassy that I represented. So I was working with a lot of the legal translation, and while of course a doll head factory is very lucrative, I could tell, because I'm reading these contracts, that the people are not being paid a very high amount, and while it does provide a job, it's not sustainable. because if anything is happening to this company, and if they're successful, if they're not successful, it doesn't help the local people. So for tourism too, in high school, everyone's graduating, everyone's third year. I ask, your friends, your classmates, where do you want to go? Everyone says Kyoto, Tokyo, Osaka, because that's where the opportunities are, but no one says Yamagata. I love Yamagata. I live here because I choose to. But again, we have a big problem in Japan for urban sprawl and low aging population, where people are leaving because there's no opportunities. So for tourism, the attraction me was creating avenues for young people for entrepreneurship, things like restaurants, things like hotel, and even again, things that are protecting traditional elements, dance, crafts, craftsmanship, and really giving people a reason, young people specifically, like myself, a reason to stay.
So a big part of the appeal of working in the tourism industry, it sounds like, is that you can really reach out and make a direct impact on people in a way that perhaps if you're in the diplomatic services, you wouldn't really be able to.
Yes, I always kind of say it's like maybe diplomacy is kind of B2B, business to
That's
business.
a good, great way of putting it.
Yeah. Whereas tourism, of course, we do B2B tourism, but it's B2C, where I'm actually, even if I'm not, the one guiding, or I am seeing the direct impact of local vendors, our local partners, and of tourists as well. When I get reports back, this is such a great trip, this really stood out. And I feel like, again, too, so the Tohoku region, I live in the northern 6 prefectures of the main island Honshu. It's called Tohoku. And only 1% of any tourists coming into Japan will visit the Tohoku region.
Which
is such a waste. In comparison, Tokyo is 57% visit rate.
Yeah, of course.
And there's something to be said, and it's, the reason, there's two main reasons that people don't visit here. Is one, people don't know what is up here. And reason number two is that it's difficult. It's difficult to visit here if you don't have the proper tourism infrastructure. So kind of building that to help maintain these types of practices, I think that's going to ultimately have a stronger impact for tourist, a visitor, rather than just a manufactured experience meant for tourists.
Yeah.
Or then, also again, for the local people too, seeing people appreciating their culture and realizing that there is value there.
Could you talk a little bit about the work you do with schools? I know we had a bit of a chat about this before we started recording, and I found it absolutely fascinating, the school tours that you work with.
Yeah, so this year we just started launching. We're doing school tours. We're doing 3 different courses. We did 3 in the three in the spring, and then we have 8 or 9 coming this summer.
Wow.
Where we're having a North American high school and 1 middle school come out for a 7 to 10 day program. And for most of these kids, it's their first time coming to Japan. Or a lot of them actually is first time leaving the country. And we've even had kids say it's their first time on an airplane. And where it's coming out to Japan. And the way that we're doing these tours is we call it exploration-based learning and exploration-based tourism. A big thing that I don't particularly care for about some traditional elements of tourism is the commercialization of it and the fact that it doesn't really leave a lasting impact.
Yeah.
You always see like the big tourist buses stopping, they take 20 pictures, and then they leave. And then, the next day they say, the temple we went to, the place with the thing, that doesn't really mean anything. And it's a backdrop for a photo. So what we do is we focus less on quantity and more on quality. And the exploration part of this is that, so rather than me going with my little tourism flag, this year, this samurai did this. And this year, this poet came here and he wrote this haiku that every Japanese person knows, but it means absolutely nothing to you. Because realistically, tourists are not going to remember this extreme detail. So typically what we'll do is we'll have the bus, of course. I'll tell them the information before we get there, as we're going there, or right when we get there. So I'll say, this is the Sensoji Temple. It is famous for this, biggest temple in Tokyo. These are some things you might want to look for. And then I give them a time and a place to meet back on. So it's still a group tour. They still get the safety and the coordination, but they're still exploring themselves. So they'll have, maybe 1 or 2 hours to explore Sensoji area, Asakusa area, and they're making their own stories. They're making their own discoveries. And in that way too, it's not just take a few pictures and leave. They're navigating and they're part of the environment. And that's something that we're trying to focus on too, is again, this year is our first year doing this. And we've actually had really good results for the few tours we did in the spring, and we're starting the new tours on Monday. But, creating a story rather than a vacation.
Sure. Makes complete sense. And I guess, could you, you're very local, you're very proud of your kind of locality where you live. What was it that particularly attracted you to Yamagata? And why do you stay there as opposed to moving to Tokyo or Kyoto or such? Perhaps aside from the business angle, aside from the tourism, what about the place really captures your imagination?
So I did live in Tokyo for 3.5 years
Oh, sure.
for my embassy job, and actually was a university student. I went to university in Tokyo. And I think for young people, for people who are trying to do business and networking, it is a good place. And I go every other week for work, and there's lots of opportunities and great things in Tokyo. But what I think really draws me to Yamagata and draws me to this region is the people.
Sure.
I've been to 45 out of 47 prefectures. And what I really, really do love about Yamagata is I say, in Tokyo, if you ask someone, we'll help you. If I am lost, if I need help, they will help me. But in Yamagata, people will always ask if they can help you.
Oh,
a really good, I
interesting
think,
distinction.
example. Yeah, I think a good example that exemplifies this is summer we were hiking Yamadera, which is a very famous mountain temple. It's about 1,000 stone stairs to the top. And with one of my friends who has asthma. So she was having a little bit of a hard time, heavy breathing, red face, and a very nice woman. She sees my friend from maybe, 4 or 5 flights of stairs up. And she comes all the way down and goes, "Are you okay here?" And she has a drink for her. Again, this woman, never met her. We never even said hello to her, never crossed paths. But she saw someone who was having a difficult time and came down to check on her. And she even said too, like, "I can wait with you if your friends want to go up." And it was just, I think, a very genuine, she wasn't getting anything out of her. She didn't ask to practice English with my friend.
Yeah.
It was just the genuine want to help someone. And I think that's what makes Yamagata really special.
That's lovely.
Wow. So, if I can just jump in there, Sam and Alex. So, apart from the people being different, what would you say? How would you describe the difference between those very different regions of the very urban megalopolis of Tokyo to more rural areas like Yamagata for people and listeners who maybe have not visited Japan yet but are thinking of going there?
Yeah, so an interesting thing about Yamagata is, as I mentioned, we're part of the Tohoku region, is the northernmost part of Honshu, the main island. Best way, well, there's not the best way. There's 2 different ways. Back a little bit. There are 4 major regions of Yamagata. You have Shonai, which is the coastal region. That's actually where I grew up. Then you have Murayama, which is where Yamagata City, where I live now, the capital is. And you have Okitama, which is southern Yamagata. That's where the city of Yonezawa is, if you know Yonezawa beef. Very famous beef in Japan. And then to the north, you have Mogami region. And they're both are very, very, very culturally, linguistically even, and geographically different. I meant that there are 2 main ways maybe to get to Yamagata. The first is, if you're coming to Yamagata City, is to take the Yamagata, the Shinkansen.
Okay.
It's about 2.5 hours directly from Tokyo to Yamagata City. The other way is if you go to Shonai. You go from Tokyo, you take the express, and you go to Niigata, transfer in Niigata to either Sakata or Tsuruoka City. However, there is no train line that connects Tsuruoka and Yamagata City. There's only a bus through the mountain pass. So it's actually about another 2 hours between the two main regions. We say like inland Yamagata versus coastal Yamagata. And historically, we were not part of the same region, which is, if you actually look more, let's say a smaller field of data, Tsuruoka dialect, so Shonai dialect, I speak both dialect. Shonai dialect is closer to Niigata, which is the prefecture south of us, because they were connected by sea trade. Whereas Yamagata dialect, or Murayama dialect as we call it, is more similar to Sendai or Miyagi, because again, they have a historical connection, whereas going over the mountains, these two regions were not historically that far connected.
How interesting.
I think the regionality of that makes it very, very, I mean, I have customers all the time who will say, oh yeah, we're going to stay in Yamagata City. Maybe one day we'll go to Tsuruoka, like a day trip, but they don't realize how far it is.
Yeah.
And they don't realize how different it is. Another really big thing that I was just having a picnic with some friends who came from Tsuruoka today. And in Yamagata City, we have a J-League team called for football, soccer football, the one with the soccer football.
Football, we'd call it.
We have a J-League. It's called Monte Dio, and it is everything in the inland regions of Yamagata. But if you go to the Shonai region, nobody talks about it. My son goes, oh yeah, I kind of remember Yamagata team. It's a prefectural team, but nobody in coastal region cares. It's just, because again, we always say this Japanese proverb that says, the other side of a mountain is another country.
Wow. Yeah.
And each of the four regions has different specialties. Another example is we have this the Yamagata famous food, butsu, is imoni soup. Is a type of potato soup we eat in the fall. And there's 4 different styles to make it. Place will make it with like a soy sauce base with beef. One place will make it with miso with pork. And just depending on the region is how they make it different.
Right.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah. So lots of diversity, even with one prefecture.
So maybe if you could tell us more about how you got to be at the head of Expedition Japan.
Yeah, so I came back, actually, I was in Taiwan. I came back to Japan in the middle of Corona, and I'm not going to pay however many million thousands of yen to live in Tokyo in a tiny one studio during a pandemic. So I came back to Yamagata, and I was freelance writing and translation for a while. I was working with like Panasonic, Japan Times, all sorts of. I was doing a lot with the Olympics too, and it was going pretty good. Again, a lot of the issue I saw with Yamagata, and I was mostly focused on travel writing. A lot of information about Tohoku, and that's a lot of my customers too will come to me and say, "Hey, I want to go here, but I can't figure out anything." And so I was trying to help, especially with Tohoku and other places in Japan. That's hard to find information about. I was doing that for about a year, and pandemic was still stretching on, and it was cold, and I mean, I was, it was making a living. But I was, thinking maybe it was about time to pack up, maybe go to Tokyo, see if there's anything there, opportunities or something, or maybe I had, some opportunities down in Kyushu. And I was contacted through because I live in Taiwan, so I had a friend here, an acquaintance who was a Taiwanese professor at Yamagata University. And he said that there was a travel company here in Yamagata that would be interested in hiring, well, at the time they were interested in hiring a Chinese-speaking staff. And so I do speak also Mandarin. So I met with them, and it was, the name of the company is Yamashin. It is the same as Yamagata Shimbun, the Yamagata newspaper.
Right.
And it's the Yamashin group owns a lot of things. It's Yamashin, so the newspaper, the Yamagata radio, Yamagata broadcasting, Yamagata airport, and in Yamashin Travel, which is the oldest travel company in all of Japan. all of the Tohoku region. We were the 127th established travel company in Japan. And they were looking to bring in start a new division, bringing in a foreigner to spearhead it, which is what I ended up being. And essentially, for the last 61 odd years, been having people go out of Yamagata. Local people go to other parts of Japan, local people go abroad. But they're realizing that with the resources leaving Yamagata, there wasn't as much going in as was going out. And so it's not sustainable in the long term.
Sure.
And so their really goal was making an inbound program with sustainability, having as much coming in as was going out. And that's something that we're striving for too, is to make it a balanced system because, again, when there is money and resources coming into Yamagata, it also makes it so people can leave. And it's not that we want people to leave, but one of the big tenets and one of the core values of our company is that travel is education. And by having people leave, having seen more of the world, we think it really does make the culture and the locality more diverse, and it's just been enriching for everyone.
Sure, it makes a lot of sense. No, it's a really, I can really feel your passion, your passion for this kind of localized Japan, which is, it's really refreshing, honestly. I mean, look, I used to live in Tokyo, too. You know, I'm a big fan of the city, but that's something I'll really walk away with. You know, 1% of people visiting where you live is really, it's hard to take for anyone, isn't it? I mean, you really want to show this to people, and you really want people to experience it. It's a shame with things like the JR pass, honestly, that more tourists aren't really using it, because that's the entire point of it, isn't it? That in theory, you can use the JR pass and go to, you know, all across Japan.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, we're trying to explore some other things that make it more attractive. It is a hard sell. I will not sugarcoat it. It's, you know, I always say it's the equivalent. If you go to France, would you skip Paris?
Sure.
Tokyo, Kyoto, Osaka are name brand, world famous cities for a reason, and there is a lot of value in going there. The majority of the customers that we see, it's their third, second, fourth time in Japan, repeat customers.
Really? I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of people too where they say, you know,
cool.
they had fun. Yeah, the first time they want to see, because again, they're not sure if they're going to get another chance. And historically, I think too, you have a lot of people who save years and years, and this is their one trip to Japan. They want to hit all of the check boxes. But we're seeing more now too. People having a lot more repeaters. Becoming to Japan is a lot easier. It's a lot more affordable. And it's yeah, it's really getting to be that. I'm sorry, I think phone's going off. But sorry about that. But I think it is really getting to be that next stage where, you know, we're having people who are coming back and they're looking for more authentic, real, localized experiences.
That's very interesting, Alex. So, thinking about your role in this much larger company, I mean, what challenges have you faced as a young foreigner leading a new initiative, but still within a big, long-established company?
It has not been easy. I'll be the first to give you that. I walked in and I pretty soon found out that it, you know, when they were deciding to open up this new division, it came down to a vote, and it came down to one person's vote, yay or nay.
Wow.
So my position originally was controversial. As we've, you know, got into success, we've gained a lot of support, and people have really seen the value of what we're doing. But it isn't a traditional company, and the other issue is, again, yeah, it's the entire company, airport, broadcasting, it's about 200 people. And the majority, everyone in my company, the next closest in age to me, he is 42. So most of these people too have only ever been, not most, all of them, have only ever worked for this company. My boss is 71 this year. He graduated university and has only ever worked at this company for 50 something years,
Wow.
which is incredible.
Wow.
And but coming in as, a double outsider was tough. And there was, I think, two main issues. Was one, again, there was a little bit of, this new kid, this new foreigner is coming. And so people were saying, you're not doing it a Japanese way. You're not doing it the Japanese way. And again, I'm not Japanese. And I have to remind them that. You hired me because you want me to do things in a foreign way for foreign-facing customers. And one of the big things that actually was the name change, because for 60 years, Yamashita traveled. But that doesn't mean anything to a foreigner. Yamashita doesn't invoke any sort of image like it would in Japan. And so by switching to Expedition Japan, we're creating something more of a memorable brand, and we're being able to widen our prospects as well, because Yamashita is very connected to Yamagata. But we are a national travel company. We service guests from Okinawa to Hokkaido. We have groups going not just Tohoku. We have Golden Route even. We have Shikoku. I really do love doing the stuff in Shikoku. Kyushu even. And so moving away from this brand of a local travel company, and again, positioning ourselves, that was something that they were a little just about, because they didn't understand the foreign concept. And another thing is the working style. Japan is known as a very difficult place for many Western foreigners to work, because people are very dedicated to their jobs. Some of my coworkers will work, myself included, will work into the late hours of the night. And I think if you're not prepared to do that, it can be very jarring. But I've been there for 2 years now, and I love my job and I love what I do.
That's amazing. So how did you bridge the generation gap and culture gap and win over the more skeptical coworkers to your side? What advice would you give for someone considering working in a Japanese company?
So I think the first thing too is dedication. In, I think, a lot of Western countries, we're very individual first, work second culture. And I'm not going to say that one is right or wrong. It is just a difference. For like a lot of my friends too, their job is a job. It's how they put money on and food on the table. They go home, they have their life, they clock out. For many people in Japan, and for me and for my company, that is not the case. Your job is your life, and it's a reflection of your image, and it's a reflection of your dedication to your craft. So for me, I think my coworkers really started to maybe, I won't say respect, that's a little bragging, but acknowledge me when I started working overtime. There is a bad connotation in Japan, but they're seeing that, he's not just here for the paycheck. He's here the same as us, working in the same trenches, dedicated to the same goal that we are. And from there, I wasn't just, clocking in, clocking out. It was, we were part of the same ship, and we're either sailing together or sinking together.
Yeah.
The other thing too is not having a spine. It's very easy in a Japanese company as a young person, and this happens again to a lot of young recruits, where just to the company president, the company manager, the director, yes, we'll do it like you say. But again, I do always remind people, you hired me to do things my way.
Yeah.
This will not work. This will not work. And sticking to that, saying a voice, that was a little difficult for some people too, because they say, again, it's people who've been at this company, in this industry longer than I've been alive. But seeing that I am, again, I'm invested in making it successful. I'm willing to oppose because I think something so strongly. Yeah. There is also a time to concede. And I had to find the balance. I'm still finding the balance of this. But really, you have to go 100%. You have to, be all hands on deck. And I think when you do start bringing in results, we have in June, I think we have 300 customers, 300 students in June alone.
Wow.
That's, they say, okay, you can do what you want. And I think the good example for that too is I used we start at 9 a.m. I used to be here at 8:45. I'm here at 9:30. No one says anything because I'm doing it my way, and they know as long as I'm pulling in results, I can make it work.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Alex, thank you so much. Incredible insights, honestly. I mean, it's a wonderful conversation. So to just wrap things up, we like to we'll do a couple of quick fire questions between me and Gerard. My one, I know we've spoken a little bit about food. What's one local specialty that you think people should definitely try if people visit Yamagata? Maybe other than the potato soup.
So Yamagata they call it the fruit kingdom. We're very famous for fruit, specifically cherries and La France pears. So the fruits are a must. Other local specialties, because again, we are so diverse. Yonazawa beef is considered like the second best next to Kobe beef. And then tiger pufferfish is specialty from the Shonai region. Yes, 85% of tiger puffer comes from our region. And if there's any other ones, I would say maybe it's a little adventurous, but if you go to Okitama, which is the southern region, inago, which is a long grasshopper.
Oh, wow, nice.
Japan's not really famous for eating bugs, but it's something that you can try there, and I think it's delicious. I'll order it on my own. I like it.
Yeah, sounds good. I'll try it.
Excellent. And my question for you, Alex, is what's your favorite Japanese word or phrase?
I can't say if there's a favorite, but I'll tell you some local Yamagata dialect.
Okay.
Standard Japanese, when you're agreeing someone, you go, hi, so ne, so ne, right? You agree with hi or so. In Yamagata dialect, we agree with nda. Nda. So nda.
Interesting.
And you can always tell who's from. We don't only say lots of other regions in Tohoku always use nda nda. But you can always tell if someone's from Tohoku if you have this nda. And I have a very, very thick Yamagata dialect that sometimes I have to tone down.
Oh, fantastic. Well, Alex, once again, thank you so much for joining us today. Been a really great conversation. And thanks to everyone who's tuned in from home. Really appreciate you giving us your time. So once again, this has been Landing in Japan with Alex Litz of, let me just get is there anything you want to shout out just before we close off, Alex? Is there anywhere where you'd like people to visit or, social media or such? The floor's yours.
Yeah, we're on Instagram and Facebook, Expedition Japan. If you're thinking of coming to Tohoku, let us know. Again, we do everything from group travel to individual custom travel to single experiences, not just in Tohoku, but all over, specifically rural Japan. And in a world where, Kyoto, Osaka, Tokyo, we really hope that you'll just, consider reaching out of your comfort zone and visiting, somewhere off the beaten tracks.
Excellent. And for me, if I can have a quick shout out to, if you are thinking of visiting Japan, you can check out my group on Facebook, Go to Japan, Tourist and Travel Information.
Awesome. Great. Well, thanks so much for your time, everyone. This has been Landing in Japan, and look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.